Should I start right now? Okay. My name is Mike Van Meter, and I am, and was, and am, I guess, Amy Van Meter's dad. And I'm here to remember things about Amy. The first time I saw her, I was in the waiting room when her mother was delivering her down the hall. And at that time, back in 1967, dads were not yet welcome in the delivery room, at least at that hospital with that doctor. When I was finally getting really bored, suddenly there stood the obstetrician, the doctor who was holding her, and walked into the room and said, "You have a daughter."
She was beautiful in every way. I gave birth to her on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 1967. She was born in Kansas City, Missouri, and then when she was 10 days old, we moved to Iowa City. And I flew with my baby daughter up from Kansas City to Iowa City and began our life there. And she was an Iowa City girl.
Amy never could keep a secret. And Amy would say, "Don't tell me anything. If it's a secret, just don't tell me." We had bought my dad, as his Christmas gift, a new watch. She knew all about it and thought it was a great idea for my dad. And so when we got there, she tried in a very casual, offhanded way. She said, and she called him Ba. She said, "Ba, how is your watch?" Meaning the watch that he already was wearing. And he just immediately burst out laughing. That he knew what was coming, just within a half a second. And then she looked around like, I'm not that obvious. But she was.
When she was in third grade, she came home from school one day upset because there was a trio of little girls that weren't getting along. And she was crying. And I said, "Remember, Amy, love heals." And she looked at me and said, "You mean you love my heel?" Her sense of humor was quite literal. As a teenager, sometimes the drama became a little much, the door slamming and the foot stomping. I remember one time her father and I were sitting in the kitchen and she had gone up to her room having a little snit, and she was crying softly and we didn't respond. And then she cried a little louder and we didn't respond. And then she cried a little louder and we didn't respond. And then she was a full-on wail. We went upstairs and within minutes she was okay. But there was that adolescent female part of her which was both amusing and trying. So I would never say that she was perfect, but she came as close to it as anybody I've ever known. I moved to California when she was a senior in high school, and she elected not to come with me for reasons we all understood, and so she lived with her father and stepmother. And before I moved, there was a question about what pets she was going to take to her dad's home. And she said, "I don't think I'll be able to take any of my kitties because they have kitties, and I have to learn to pick my battles." I was blown away, and still am when I think about that, to be, gosh, how old was she? 16?
I was the one who drove her from Iowa City to Richmond, Indiana, to enroll as a freshman at Earlham.
She was convinced that Earlham was the place for her. And it was, in every regard. She made wonderful lifetime friends. She found her niche.
So I helped Amy move all of her things into the dorm room, and we get that all done, and it's time then for me to go. And she walks back out to the parking lot with me. And as I drive away, I glance in the rearview mirror, and I see her standing there. She's waving at me. Excuse me, I lost it like I'm losing it right now. That's still there after all these years. It hit me. It was a feeling like this is the beginning of something else.
So mature, so wise. When I think about her, I think of her absolute courage, which stood her in great shape for the disease and all that it brought to her. But she was courage. Was courage personified before then. She knew who she was, and she was authentically who she was from early on.
There was a warmth and loving kindness to that human being that was very distinguishing in her. There was not a mean bone in her body. She was very generous. The way she interacted with people, there was always a sense that she was really there and paying attention. The way she engaged with people was with real, genuine warmth and openness. I'm her dad. I loved her.